Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. Lenny uh, closing out the show, doing a great job this morning. It's great to have everybody here this morning to join me on my show. I've got a busy schedule, packed in information. I've got a lot to go over with you. So here we go. Let's first of all talk about the latest breaking news today, which is the effect of COVID-19 on our game. If you haven't heard by now, the Miami Marlins have reported 18, that's right, 18 outbreaks of COVID-19. The game today, scheduled to be in Miami, the original plan was yesterday, Jose Urena, Garrett Cooper, and Jorge Alfaro, who were the original three of the breakout, would stay in Philadelphia, and the rest of the team would travel home to Miami and start the opening day. Well, now the game today with Baltimore has been canceled. No game today in Miami between the Orioles and the Marlins. And 18 players out. The thing is, with this virus, as we know, who knows where it was contracted. We know now, though, with 18 positive tests on the Marlins, it would basically be impossible to play. I mean, you'd have to call your whole taxi squad up. I guess that's what they're going to have to do. I don't know what the game situation will be tomorrow, but as of right now, there is no game today in Miami. So if you are fantasizing in baseball, you have any Orioles, you have any Marlins, just write it down. They're not playing today. So we'll keep our eye on that. Now, the other concern you have is, well, Miami was playing Philadelphia this weekend. So now let's keep our eye on the Phillies. And will there be any breakouts amongst the Philly players? The thing is, I know we got to be careful. I think, here you go. My editorial is this, that when we aren't extremely cautious, when we start to think, hey, this won't happen to me, it can happen to anyone, and it will. And I'm really concerned about young people, the young generation, the 20 and 30s. Frankly, I think a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds, I'm not saying this is everyone, but I'm not zooming there, but I think a lot of 20 and 30 feel I'm invincible. It's not going to happen to me. Everybody else will get sick, but I won't. And that's not the case. If Major League Baseball players, 18 breakouts can be confirmed, then it's obvious that that can happen to absolutely anyone. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. It's great to be with you today. It's the news of the day is the cancellation of the game. I think there's a lot of positive that happened. We're going to talk about some other injuries and some relief pitcher and some streamers to pick up for today. But I thought we have to lead off with the Marlins story. And so let's keep our eye on that, keep our eye on the Phillies, see how any reported breakouts go there. Cincinnati, if you remember, Davidson played opening day as designated hitter, then reported that he has been diagnosed or positive for COVID. Mike Moustakas didn't feel well yesterday, did not play. I don't think I've seen confirmation that it's COVID related, but the report I read out of Cincinnati was out of an abundance of caution. Moustakas would not play yesterday, subsequently placed on the 10-day injured list. Nick Senzel, and it's like, what's going to happen to Senzel next, right? So Nick Senzel, he is on the injured list. It could be COVID related. So there are at least 3 possibilities in Cincinnati. Now, let's remember this with COVID. This is the interesting thing with the 10-day IL or whatever IL you're placed on. Once you have 2 negative tests, you can be taken off of the IL, meaning you don't have to wait the requisite number of days if you have 2 negative tests. And I guess maybe you knew that, but if you don't, you know it now. So I'm sure they'll be testing. And if, like in the case of Moustakas, if he can get 2 negative tests, he'll be back with the Reds sooner than later. Not maybe as serious in Cincinnati due to the numbers, but just as serious because we've got to be cautious. We've got to protect. And George Nixon, what is my take on your Phillies this week? We'll get to that in a moment. I'll get to that. How about if I get to it right now? So I'm looking at the questions coming in. The question is about the Phillies. Well, here's my take on the Phillies. As they got Zach Wheeler, I think that's a great move. First of all, I don't think you can put so much stock in early season games the first week of the season. So I think, first of all, I don't care who your team is that you follow. Don't think, oh, okay, the Orioles are 2-1. They're not going to be so bad. Well, they are. They're going to be so bad. It's just Boston's pitching this weekend was absolutely ridiculously awful. The Mariners played well in Houston. The Giants played pretty well in Los Angeles. But I don't think those teams are going to be that competitive year-round. Now, Miami, George, is a little bit of a different bird, little different flight pattern here for Miami. Now, the problem is now they're not going to be played. Okay? So, but against the Phillies this weekend, first of all, Sandy Alcantara opening day, Aaron Nola opening day. It was a great pitching matchup. Nola pitched great. Alcantara pitched great. Alcantara could be a number 1 or a number 2 starter on a lot of teams, George. So don't feel so bad about that loss. Caleb Smith, awful on Saturday. The Marlins just hit the Marlins hit like crazy over the weekend. If you look at the stats, and I'm going to go through a box score from yesterday in just a moment, but the stats on these Marlins, when you look at their batting averages through 3 games, are just absolutely incredible. So let's take a look at yesterday. Marlins went 11-6, George. And when you look at the Marlin batters, you got Dickerson, who's hitting 308. He went 2 for 5 yesterday. Aguilar went 2 for 3 yesterday with a home run, his second of the year, second of the series against Philadelphia. Anderson went 1 for 4 with 3 RBIs. Aishan Diaz went 2 for 5. Rojas, what a weekend. Kid's hitting 700 after 3 games. He went 3 for 4 yesterday. And Sierra went 2 for 3. He's hitting 667. So do we expect Mel Rojas to hit 700 all year long? The absolute answer is no way. He's not even going to come close to that. He had a great opening weekend, and we've seen that over the years. Team comes out hot. So, George, I think the Phillies are going to be a player throughout the season. Again, I know if you're a Philly fan this morning, you wake up, you look at the standings, you're 1-2, but a lot of teams are 1-2. There are no undefeated teams in Major League Baseball, and so, George, the Phillies are only 1 game behind the best record in all of baseball, 1 game behind. So let's don't panic in reality. Let's don't panic in fantasy. I was listening to Lenny talk about Christian Yelich being 1 for 13. The one hit was a home run Saturday. But how many of you guys are cutting Christian Yelich because he started 1 for 13? No one. And because we know as sure as he started 1 for 13, he's going to have a 3 for 4 day, another 3 for 4 day. Bryce Harper hit a laser home run over the weekend. It's going to come around. It's going to equal out. We'll keep our eye. I'm more concerned about the Phillies' health, having played the Marlins. I don't want to dwell on that all show, but I'm more concerned about the health of the team, having been in contact with those players over the weekend. And I hope that we have good news all week long on players' health everywhere, but especially in Philadelphia. So, what happened yesterday other than COVID? Well, we got 3 starting pitchers who had problems over the weekend who were high draft picks in fantasy. I want to talk about those and talk about at least in one situation, a possible replacement. I'm going to go from what I think sounds like the least severe to what could be the most severe playoff wise. First of all, let's start with Washington and Steven Strasburg. Strasburg said just hours before his start on Saturday against the Yankees, he had some tingling, some numbness, and that he was scratched from that start. The Nats pull in a starter. They beat the Yankees 9-2. Everything I'm reading, it makes it sound like this is a short-term situation with Strasburg. Might Fetty pitch one more start for him? Surely he might. But I think by maybe next weekend, Strasburg should be back. I don't think anything drastic is happening there. I know he was not placed on the IL. So it looks like all signs are pointing to Strasburg returning sooner than later. The other two, though, concern me a lot. And I guess the question is, which one do you feel is more serious, an elbow or a shoulder? I think they're both serious. And in the case of Corey Kluber, who had stiff shoulder on Saturday or Sunday rather, and did not start his game, I'm really concerned. First of all, we know the last time we saw Corey Kluber, he did not look like Corey Kluber. He did not look good at all. He had a bad start to a year last year, finally shut down with injuries, has not pitched in about over a year really, and didn't pitch yesterday after being slated to start. So I'm really concerned about the shoulder of Kluber. You know, I don't know who Texas has that can come in and take his place right away. They filled in yesterday. Palumbo, I mean, it could be anyone. But the Houston situation to me is much more serious. First of all, the Oakland A's are for real. Second of all, Texas has a really good team. Now, I know Kluber going down will affect Texas, but they are better than they were. Their bullpen is better than it was. And so now we've got Houston losing Verlander for probably at least 4 weeks, if not 5. Remember, this is a 9-week season. So you're talking about no Verlander in Houston for at least half of the season. I know he's a tough son of a gun. I know, yeah. If anybody will come back and pitch this year, it will be Justin Verlander. No doubt about it. But it's an elbow. And remember, he had problems early in the spring. And now he's trying to come back from this situation. If you look at that Astros rotation and you take Verlander out of it, you're left with Lance McCullers and you're left with Zach Greinke as established starters. McCullers, not really that established. He's had injury problems throughout his career. He did look pretty good against Seattle on Saturday. But those will be your two primary pitchers. And who will Houston utilize to take that role of Verlander? I'll give you two possible candidates, and there could be more. Remember, Brad Peacock, who has in the past slid into a semi-starter, semi-reliever role, he's on the IL, so he's not a consideration right now. But I think two players are. The one with the most upside, and a year ago, 2 years ago, you would have said would been automatic, would be Forrest Whitley. And the problem with Forrest Whitley is Forrest Whitley. He just has not performed up to expectations. He did perform better last year, the latter half of his AA season. I don't know if Houston is ready to say to Forrest Whitley, hey, we're going to give you this opportunity, go out and pitch. I think he's the dark horse. I think the more likely candidate to move into Verlander's spot in the rotation is a young pitcher that I saw pitch at high A last year. He made it up all the way to AAA last year, and that's Christian Javier. Christian Javier, a hard-throwing right-hander. Frankly, he's imposing on the mound, has a very live fastball, very good slider. I could see Javier going into the rotation, giving him a little rope. Now, you got to remember, this will be a rookie, but I think he has the ability to perform in that role. He's no Verlander, and Houston will take a hit on this one because if they were to have any kind of slide, it was always like, let's bring Justin in, he'll stop the slide. He's not there to bring in anymore. So I'm looking at Christian Javier as a possible pickup. Forrest Whitley, a dark horse, but either one of those, don't be surprised if they're not given an opportunity to fill in for Verlander while he's out. And it could be, as you read initially, an all-season long injury. I think best case scenario is 4 to 5 weeks, but it could be all season. So if you have Verlander on your team, what do? If you have an IL slot, it's really easy. It's easy in that you just put him on the IL. But if you don't have an IL slot, do you trade him? Do you just stash him away? It's a tough decision. And maybe here's what I suggest you do. Hold him for a couple of weeks. In a couple of weeks, we're going to get reports on Verlander. We're going to know more about his situation, and then we can make decisions on where we are. But I would not go out right now and cut a player like Verlander. I don't know that I'd trade him because you're going to get nickels on the dollar. But let's wait a couple of weeks and then make that decision. So let's talk about closers. I don't draft closers in fantasy very hard. I think, and I'm going to tell you why with this, what I'm getting ready to talk about next. It just seems like closers are such a flux position. You never know who's going to close next. Yesterday in Toronto, if you were watching the game, Toronto and Tampa, Ken Giles comes in the ninth inning. He had grimaces on his face. He struggled. He came out with 2 out in the ninth. This morning it's reported he's going on the IL. There's an elbow issue. I really fear the worst there. And so who's going to become the closer now in Toronto? And a lot of you guys, if you drafted closers, you probably drafted Giles up near the top of the list. He had a great year last year statistically. He was one of the top 2 or 3 closers in Major League Baseball. He's gone. And now we got to find who's going to take his place. I'm going to suggest if you are in a league where it's a deep league, you might want to take a look at a player named Anthony Bass. Anthony Bass pitched the 8th inning yesterday. It appears that he would be the pitcher in waiting to assume the job in Toronto. If not, maybe Rafael Delis. He pitched the 7th inning yesterday. It could be a floating situation. You could have Rafael Delis one day. You could have Anthony Bass another. Nothing's been set in stone yet. If I'm gambling on one or the other, I'm going with Anthony Bass. That's right. That's who I'm going with in fantasy. I think Bass will be the first man up to get the opportunity to be the closer in Toronto. What about what happened Saturday in Kansas City? I talked about it a little bit yesterday with the starting pitcher. I'm not going to repeat my show from yesterday. I want to talk about the bullpen. When Brady Singer came out of the game, pitched a whale of a game Saturday, what did they do? Well, they brought in last year's closer in the 6th inning. And then who became the closer Saturday was Greg Holland. And the game went extra innings. And Holland pitches the 10th inning for Kansas City with a man on second. And Holland strikes out the side. Yes, strikes out the side. Now, we know Holland's velo is not what it was, but some good news. His fastball is 1 mile per hour faster than it was when he was released last year with Arizona. That's the first good thing. Second, he's throwing his slider primarily. And as long as that slider continues to bite, Holland can be a very good option at closer. Now, how many games will he hit the close in Kansas City? I don't know. But I know Brady Singer is a good starting pitcher. Very good. And he pitched Saturday against a stealth Cleveland Indian lineup, and he looked fantastic. He's going to pitch this week against Detroit. That's right, the Tigers. Doesn't that taste good if you're Brady Singer? I mean, I can just see a buffet spread out, and it's got Detroit Tigers all over it. And Singer's going to pitch good. And now it looks like Holland's going to be the closer in Kansas City, at least until further notice. What about Seattle? Are you interested in a Mariners closer? These guys are all out there, okay? I'm trying to give you great information this morning, players you can pick up in fantasy who are available. And I got to believe a guy like Taylor Williams is available in fantasy. Had you ever heard of Taylor Williams until now? He closed the game out this weekend for Seattle. Looked pretty good doing it against Houston. And we know that Houston lineup is nothing to sneeze at. So he's a guy you may want to look at for closers. Now, how many of you guys drafted, like me, Anderson in Tampa, thinking he's going to be the closer? Okay. Well, guess what? He's not the designated single guy they're going to for saves. So if they're not going to him, who are they going to? Nick Anderson did pitch and did pick up a win on Saturday. He pitched an inning and a third, scoreless innings. He earned the win, but the save went to Oliver Drake. That's right. Write that name down. Oliver Drake. Not any of the main pitchers we had spoken about early in the year that might be a potential closer for Tampa, but now it's Oliver Drake getting a save rather, for Tampa over the weekend. I mean, Kevin Cash has got so many weapons out there, and I just think you've got to keep your eye on that situation. Oliver Drake in Tampa. I'm not saying you should cut Anderson, but it looks like that could be a day-to-day decision on who's going to get the save or get the save opportunity. And over the weekend, it went to Oliver Drake. Going through the weekend, two pitchers who really disappointed me for different reasons. And maybe their reason for disappointing is different. Did you watch Shohei Ohtani yesterday pitch for the Angels? No outs, 6 base runners. He came out early. It looked like his stuff was there, but he could not throw a strike. And when he did, they hit it. So was it just nerves? Can a player in Major League Baseball truly prepare as a starting pitcher and as a full-time batter? That's the question. Can a player in Major League Baseball in today's game with all the specialties going on really do that? We'll see. I know that the Angels have an incredible lineup. They're expecting Rendon back this week. They're going to score a bunch of runs. And if you put Ohtani the full-time DH, and that's all he does this year, he's going to hit a ton. I think that's what I would do with him. Now, I read somewhere that there's some talk about Ohtani becoming a closer. Maybe, I don't know, but if he could just focus on one or the other, because he can pitch, he can hit, but doing both in today's game, it's not like we're going out on the ball field at the schoolhouse and playing a pickup game on Saturday afternoon. There's so much technology and so much research, and it's just a different game. And so I don't know what the Angels are going to do with that. Look for him to start Sunday. But who do they play Sunday? They play the Houston Astros. And are you really crazy about putting Ohtani out there in fantasy in your lineup Sunday playing the Astros after the way he pitched yesterday against the A's? I'm not that crazy about it. We'll see. The other pitcher of the weekend that was disappointing to me was Big Maple, James Paxton. Paxton, I've been reading this for a couple of weeks. The Yankees were concerned and still are that Paxton's velocity is down. We know he had the back surgery early in the spring. His season start would have been delayed had we started on time. Because of the delay due to COVID and the season starting in July, he could pitch, but his velocity is not where they want it. And it showed in droves Saturday evening playing against Washington, giving up all those runs in the first inning. He was taken out after one inning. I think you put Paxton on your bench this week in fantasy. I don't start Paxton this week. Until that velocity starts to increase, Paxton stays on my bench. It will be interesting to see. Jordan Montgomery pitched this week. Jordan Montgomery, according to Aaron Boone, is going to pitch game 6. Today is game 4. So that means he will pitch on Wednesday. I think Jordan Montgomery has great stuff. He'll do a great job. We'll see how things work out for Montgomery over the weekend. but or excuse me, on Wednesday. I just think that he's going to do a great job for the Yankees, and I'm looking for great stuff all season from him. So let's switch the gears a little bit. I want to talk about some waiver wire pickups on the infield this week. I want to take a look at first base and third base first, and some players that you might be interested in that will be, I don't know, possibly out there on your waiver wires. Maybe not, but these are all players that are owned in less than 50% of fantasy leagues. I'm not going to go with picking up Pete Alonso. Okay, he's not available. We're not going to waste our time on that this morning. We're going to start talking about C.J. Cron, first baseman, Detroit, owned in about 38% of leagues. He really checks all the boxes. Okay, he hits in the middle of the lineup. He plays every day. He has power, 30 home run power, and he's going to be playing against. Let's look who he played against this weekend. This weekend, he played against the Reds, and that included the likes of Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, the Reds bullpen. He went 4 for 11 with 2 home runs and 4 RBIs. Now, I think that's a great start to a year. So we know he's got real power. He'll have his ups and downs, but his playing time is secure for the first time in his career. And he next faces the Royals, although Brady Singer will pitch probably Wednesday or Thursday. That's the only real stud pitcher in the rotation the Royals have. And the Reds again next week. And all of these games are in Detroit, which plays well for a power hitter like C.J. Cron. So put Cron at the top of your ad list for this week. Also, Will Myers. Now, I'm not a big believer in Myers, but the Padres are for real this year. And usually good teams bring out the best in even average players. Myers has played 155 games or more 3 of the last 4 seasons. He has stolen 16 bases and hit at least 18 home runs in those 3 seasons. It was 2018, 2 years ago, when he played only 83 games, but then he still managed to hit 11 homers and steal 13 bases. So what am I saying? I'm saying I think Myers is almost a must-add. If you need some speed and need some power, he brings both. Some pop, and he's going to be playing, it looks like, every day. He changed his batting stance over the summer. He's pivoting more on his back foot. This should help him both hit for average and power. And with the secured playing time in San Diego, you got to go get Will Myers. Nico Goodrum. How about Nico? He wore a diamond. No, that was Rico. Without much notice, without any fanfare, Nico Goodrum is now the leadoff hitter for the Tigers. I like players who hit in the top 3 of the order. Now, he can have an issue with batting average. That's true. But he can steal you bases. I don't think Detroit's problem this year is going to be necessarily scoring runs. I think Detroit's problem this year is going to be stopping the other team from doing that. So at the top of the order, and look, he plays everywhere. I think he's first base, second base, shortstop, outfield. I mean, that's the kind of player we'd love to have in fantasy. Another player that I watched over the weekend, he's hit 2 home runs already, is Ian Happ for the Cubs. He started every game so far. He does bat at the bottom of the lineup. He and Victor Caratini have played every game. But the appeal here is the power and speed element that Happ brings. And I know they played the Pirates this weekend. I know they play the Reds this week, which is not necessarily the easiest staff to face. But they go against their number 4 and number 5 starters to begin the week. And Great American Ballpark, as we know, is truly a great ballpark to hit in. So I'm looking for great things this week from Ian Happ. Yoshitomo Tsugo, third base outfielder for Tampa Bay. Now, we've only seen 1 hit so far this weekend. That 1 hit was a shot, came off of a left-handed pitcher, and of course, Tsugo is a left-handed batter. He's hit third or fourth in the lineup over both of the games that he played this weekend. He should be a mainstay. Kevin Cash talks about him with rave reviews. So I think if Tsugo is available, he's certainly someone that you want to go pick up. Now, here's a real long shot because I watched him play this weekend, but now the problem is Miami's canceling games. So I don't suggest you pick him up. But when they start back playing, I like Jesus Aguilar. I think he hit the home run over the weekend. He's going to play every day. Certainly a corner infielder that when Miami can start back playing, you want to take a look at. Now, let's talk about some middle infielders. And I've already talked about Ian Happ, so I won't talk about him against a middle infielder because he plays in a lot of positions. He can play the corner and the middle. But how about Colton Wong? Colton Wong is 4 for 12 this weekend. He's going to steal you some bases. He's 29 years old. He's had 3 seasons with at least 11 homers and 15 stolen bases. And he swiped 24 bags last year. Career 261 hitter, but he's actually hit 285 over the past 2 of the last 3 campaigns. I really like Colton Wong. And if he's available in your leagues, I think he's a good add this week. Another good add this week, Nick Solak, who can play second base and third base for Texas. Look, he had 293 last year in limited time. He had 5 home runs and 2 stolen bases. And I know there are a lot of mouths to feed in Texas. Okay, you got Calhoun, who was hurt. Now he's back. You got a first base situation that's in flux. But Solak has started 2 of the 3 games for Texas. He hit second in one of those games. He singled as a pinch hitter in the game he didn't start. And so he's able to play different positions, and he will gain more position eligibility as the season goes on. So look at Nick Solak. What about Freddie Galvis for Cincinnati? Now, Freddie Galvis is one of these players. He's never really exciting. He's never really someone I'm going to draft Freddie Galvis. No. But he performs. He really performs. He's averaged 17 home runs and 11 stolen bases during the past 4 seasons. Last year, a career high 23 home runs. He's got a great ballpark. He's got a great lineup hitting around him. And he's only owned in about 10% of the leagues. Similarly to that is Jonathan Scope. Now, it used to be that all he could do was hit home runs and not much of an average. But he's 28 years old. He seems to be locked in, hitting second in that Tigers order behind Nico Goodrum. I think this will be a breakout type year, even though it's only 60 games, for Jonathan Scope. A 28-year-old. Remember, he is really a 4-stud category. He doesn't steal bases, but he can hit for average, power, RBIs, and hitting second, runs scored. Well, I got a lot of good ones this morning, huh? What about Lurie Garcia for the White Sox? Now, I know they were thumped yesterday 14-2, but this is a potent offense. And Garcia, who is an outfielder by trade, has been moved to second base. And the reason his manager said, I'm moving Garcia to second base is because of his bat. And in fantasy, that's all we care about is the bat. And this bat hits. He hit 279 last year. Did you know he scored 93 runs? Did you know he stole 15 bases? How about that? So he's starting at second base for the White Sox. I know he's hitting down in the order, but he's proven he can contribute in the past in these other categories, and he's getting the playing time starting all 3 games so far for the White Sox. So you think, what about when Madrigal comes up to the White Sox? I proffer to you that's when Nicky Delmonico goes to the bench and Lurie Garcia stays in the lineup. So I don't think Lurie Garcia is a short-term ad. I think he very well can be a long-term season ad pending his performance as we go forward. Just my take on it. And then just a couple more. One more, rather. Wilmer Flores for the Giants. He has never had over 510 at-bats in a single season. And nobody's going to get there this year, of course. But he's 28 years old, and he may now get finally regular playing time for the Giants. Now, I know the Giants are not an offensive juggernaut. I got it. But they are a major league team, and they are going to play games, and they are going to score some runs. And Wilmer Flores is going to hit near the top of that order, batting either second or third in every game this year. He's hit safely in all games so far. And he has averaged 20 home runs per 600 at bats over his career. And last year for Arizona, he hit 317. Wilmer Flores is a bat that will hit. He will hit well in that park. He will hit well in that division. And he is only owned of all the players I've mentioned. Wilmer Flores is only owned in 2% of the leagues. Now I got to bring up just a few players that just overall. First of all, did you watch Luis Robert play this weekend? I mean, is he not just an incredible player? I know he's a rookie, but he's got what it takes. Okay. He had the 337 ISO at AAA Charlotte last year. In the second inning of his first game, he came to the plate, looked down Jose Barrios, and smashed the first pitch he saw at an exit velo of 116 miles per hour. Okay. Put that in context. Last year, there were 20 players who hit a ball harder than Robert did in his first career hit. 20. Okay. So Robert then has a home run over the weekend. His home run was a 419-foot blast that went out at 111 miles per hour. That means, as of right now, Robert has the 5th and 1st hardest hits of this season. If you don't have Luis Robert on your team, you wish you did. And if you do have him, you're glad you got him. He is going to be, I believe, one of the great stars of this game, not only this year, but for many years. Remember, the White Sox signed him to a contract so they could go ahead and bring him up to the major leagues. Teams don't do that often. Well, there isn't but one Luis Robert, and that's why. So there we go. So let's take a look at just a few more players that I want you to take a look at in daily fantasy today. Nico Hoerner for Chicago, a right-handed bat, could be bought cheaply in daily fantasy. He is the Cubs' third highest prospect, and today he's facing Wade Miley, the left-handed soft-tossing pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds. Last year, Hoerner hit 273 in 11 appearances against lefties. He's hitting in a hitter's park in Cincinnati. I think for daily fantasy, he'd be a great pickup at a cheap price so you can put money on other positions. What about Eric Sogard from Milwaukee? Not owned hardly at all. He's facing a lefty today. Sogard's a lefty, but he's facing Stephen Brault. Last year, Sogard hit 290, 13 homers, 8 stolen bases. He's hitting leadoff for the Brewers right in front of Christian Yelich and Keston Hiura. So he's going to have run opportunities. Sogard does good against lefties. Well, how good do you say? Well, let's talk about it. He hit 270 with 6 home runs in 2019. Stephen Brault has a 5.16 ERA last year, a 150 whip. Now, he does strike out 9.3 in his 113 innings. But I like that matchup, Milwaukee against Stephen Brault today. And I like Sogard, who can be bought so cheaply. How about pitchers? Let's go to Anaheim, where they were beaten pretty bad. Well, beat up early, but they came back, fought back. Oakland won the game yesterday. But today, it's going to be Griffin Canning pitching for the Angels. Canning is healthy and ready to go. Canning, against the A's last year, had a 3.50 ERA with 19 strikeouts and 18 innings pitched. I know that the A's have good hitters, but they're playing in a pitcher's park today. And Canning has a 13.8% swinging strike percentage and a 17.2 K per walk ratio in 90.1 innings pitched last year. His counterpart is also a good pitcher to own, and that would be Chris Bassett, who takes the mound today against the Angels, opposing Cannon. Bassett had a 3.81 ERA last year. He was much better than that at home, though. And the game today is in Oakland. He had a 3.01 ERA and 17.3% K to walk ratio in 68 innings pitched. Now, I know Rendon may be back. I don't think he'll be back on Monday. So I think to take Bassett on Monday is a right time. A lot of times, Ohtani doesn't play the day after he pitches. We'll see if that's the case today because he didn't pitch very long yesterday. But I think Bassett as well as Canning could be good, sharp adds today for your daily fantasy. Good morning, Kurt Hinton. Good morning, TKO. Stay out of Miami is the word. And let's wish them the best and hope that the 18 players who were diagnosed with corona can be back on the field soon. I don't know what that does to Miami. For example, I added Sandy Alcantara after his opening day start, and now I'm concerned he won't pitch this week at all. If they don't play games, what will that do? I mean, there's a lot going on here. Reality baseball, fantasy baseball. If Miami cancels games and can't play, that can't happen but for so long. Because the season just doesn't last that long. And there aren't that many off days. So it'll be interesting to see how MLB handles the crisis, if you will, in Miami now with the players going down. We'll see. Guys, it's been great to be with you this morning. I'll be back again tomorrow for more fantasy talk, more daily advice. If you have questions, I want to thank you guys for chatting in here this morning. I want to thank the chat room for being with me. It's great to be with you again. Shows tonight. I know there's a show on at 7. I know tomorrow Lenny will lead off. I'll be on after Lenny, and then tomorrow night Chappie and I both have shows, and we have one together. Tuesday night's a busy night for us. Look forward to seeing you. Everybody have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow right here on Arnie's Fantasy World of